Here is a strange thing about the modern world. A machine can now decide whether you get the job, whether you get the loan, whether the state thinks you are a fraud. And in a lot of cases, nobody in the building can tell you why. That is not science fiction. That is a Tuesday. It is already happening quietly in systems you will never see, making calls about your life at a scale no human committee ever could. So here is the question this whole video is about. Who checks the machine? Who audits the thing that is auditing you? The answer has a name. It is called an AI audit. And over the next 20 minutes, I'm going to show you what it actually is, why it suddenly matters, and what governments have started forcing companies to do about it. And a quick note on why now. Because this is not a slow building story. 3 years ago, most of this AI was basically a toy, a demo, a thing that wrote you a funny poem. Now it sits inside hiring, lending, policing, and medicine, making real calls about real people. The technology is printed. The oversight is only now catching up. And that gap between what these systems already do and what anyone is actually checking is the whole subject of this video. Let us start with the problem. Because the problem is not that AI makes mistakes, humans make mistakes too. The problem is different. The problem is scale plus silence. A biased human interviewer ruins a few afternoons. A biased hiring algorithm ruins 100,000 applications before lunch. Same mistake. Wildly different blast radius. And you cannot even opt out. You did not choose to be scored. You often do not even know that it happened. There is no line at the bottom of the rejection that says, by the way, a machine decided this. It just says no, politely, finally. And you move on, never knowing what actually judged you. And here is the part that should bother you. The machine does not know it is wrong. It is not lying to you. It genuinely cannot tell. It has no idea. It just did something a court would call discrimination. Why not? Because of where it learned. This is the single most important idea in this whole subject, so slow down for it. An AI system does not get its opinions from a rulebook. It gets them from data, piles of it. Historical records of what humans did before, and it copies the pattern it finds. Now think about what is inside that data. It is us, our old decisions, our old habits, our good years and our ugly ones. All of it, frozen, and handed to a machine as if it were the truth. Okay. So the AI learns the world as it was, including the parts of the world we are not proud of. It does not fix our bias, it scales it, it automates it, it gives it a server farm. And it gets worse than that, because the machine's decisions become tomorrow's data. It rejects a certain kind of person today. That rejection gets recorded. And the next version learns from the record, so the bias does not just repeat, it compounds. Each generation a little more confident and a little more wrong. A loop that tightens every single time nobody is looking. Here is a clean example. Say a company hired mostly one kind of person for a decade, not on purpose necessarily, just how it went. Now feed that decade to an algorithm and ask it to spot a good candidate. What does it learn? It learns that a good candidate looks like the people who already got hired. So it quietly starts screening out everyone who does not. And it calls that objective. It calls that data-driven. That is the trap. The bias does not walk in wearing a villain costume. It arrives disguised as math, as neutrality, as a number that feels fair, precisely because a computer produced it. Now multiply that across everything. Loans, insurance, who gets flagged at a border, who a hospital system moves up the list, who a benefits office decides to investigate. All of it, increasingly, run through models built the same way. So that is the problem. Now let us talk about the symptoms. Because a problem this big does not stay hidden. It leaks out in patterns. And once you know the shape, you see it everywhere. Symptom 1. The black box. You ask the system why it said no, and there is no answer. Not because they are hiding it, because nobody actually knows. The model made its decision across millions of tiny weighted signals. No human can read. Think about that for a second. A decision was made about your life, and the true answer to why is nobody knows. That is not a bug in one product. That is the default state of modern AI. And here is the twist that makes it worse. We trust it more, not less, because a machine said it. Put a number on a bad decision, and suddenly it feels rigorous, objective, final. A person might argue with a colleague. Almost nobody argues with a computer. That reflex has a name. Automation bias. And it means the machine's mistakes sail straight through, unquestioned, precisely because a machine is the one who made them. Symptom 2. Disparate impact. The system never mentions race or gender or where you live. It does not have to. It finds a stand in, a postcode, a gap in your resume, a word on your form, and it treats that stand in exactly like the thing it is banned from using. This is the sneaky one. You can build a model that is technically blind to the protected trait and watch it rebuild that trait from crumbs and discriminate perfectly and pass every surface check you throw at it. Symptom 3. Silent failure. A normal machine breaks loudly. A broken model keeps running. It produces confident, clean, professional looking outputs that are quietly wrong, and it will do that for years if nobody measures it. Symptom 4. Reputation gone overnight. This is the one that finally got companies to care. One bias system, one journalist, one screenshot, and a brand built over decades takes the hit before the PR team has finished its coffee. And symptom 5, the human one, erosion of trust. People are not stupid. They can feel when a decision about them was made by something they cannot question, cannot appeal, and cannot understand. And slowly, they stop trusting the whole institution behind it. So put those together. Enormous scale, zero transparency, bias that hides his math, failures that stay silent, and a public that is starting to demand answers nobody can give. That is the fire. Now let us talk about the extinguisher. And if the word audit makes your eyes glaze over, hold on. Because we already do this everywhere else, and nobody blinks. Your bank is audited, your food is inspected. The plane you fly in was certified by someone who does not work for the airline. We audit everything that can hurt people at scale. AI just spent a decade as the one powerful exception, and that exception is what is ending now. The solution is the AI audit. So let me give you the actual definition, the real one, not a vibe. An AI audit is an independent, systematic evaluation of an AI system to check whether it meets security, legal, and ethical standards. Independent, systematic. Those two words are doing a lot of work. Hold on to them. Independent means not the team that built it, not marking your own homework. Someone from outside, with no reason to protect the thing, looking at it cold. Systematic means it is not a vibe check. It is a defined process, run the same way every time, that produces evidence you can put in front of a regulator, not an opinion, a record. So what does an audit actually hand you at the end? Not a thumbs up, a document, page after page of it. What was tested, on whom, what the numbers showed, where the system passed and exactly where it failed and by how much. A paper trail somebody can be held to because you cannot appeal a vibe, but you can appeal a record. And what does the audit actually look at? 3 layers. Remember these 3 because everything else is detail. Layer 1, the inputs, the data. Where did it come from? What is inside it? And whose word does it represent? Because we already know. Garbage history in, automated injustice out. Layer 2, the processing. The model itself, how it turns an input into a decision. Poking it, stress testing it, feeding it edge cases to see where the logic bends and who it bends against. And the best audits go further than watching, they attack, on purpose. The auditors feed the model deliberately hard, strange, adversarial cases, trying to make it fail inside a controlled room instead of out in the world. It is the same idea as a fire drill. You would much rather discover the exit is blocked during the drill than during the fire. Layer 3. The outputs, the decisions. This is the moment of truth. You take the results, you split them by group, and you measure. Does one group get told yes far more often than another? The numbers do not care about intentions. They just show you the pattern. There is also a whole field racing to pry the black box open from the inside. Tools that force the model to show its work, to point at which factors actually pushed a decision one way or the other. They are not magic. A confident explanation of a wrong answer is still a wrong answer. But paired with a proper audit, they turn what used to be a flat, final no into something you can finally interrogate. And interrogation is where accountability begins. And that is the quiet genius of a good audit. It does not ask the machine to explain itself. The machine cannot. It ignores the black box entirely and judges the system the only honest way, by its results, by what it actually did to real people. But here is something people get wrong about audits. They think it is a one-time gate, pass once, done forever. It is not. A model is not a bridge, it drifts. The world shifts underneath it. New data flows in, and a system that was fair in January can quietly rot by June. So a real audit is not an event, it is a habit. You check, and you keep checking for as long as the machine keeps deciding. So who actually does all of this checking? A whole new profession, basically invented in the last few years. Independent AI auditors. Firms that do nothing but pry open other companies' models and grade them. A decade ago, the job barely existed. Today, it is one of the fastest growing corners of the entire tech economy. Because the moment the law demands a check, somebody has to be qualified to run it. But there is a hard problem hiding right here, and honest people admit it. Who pays the auditor? Usually, the company being audited, and that is an awkward arrangement. It is the same one that has stripped up financial auditing for a century. Independence on paper is easy. Independence. When the person you are grading also signs your check, that is the thing. This whole young field is still fighting to get right. Now, a fair question. Can you not just trust the company to check its own model? They built it. They know it best. And that is exactly why they are the wrong ones to judge it. You do not let a student grade their own exam. You do not let a restaurant inspect its own kitchen. The whole point of an audit is that word. Independent. Skin in the game is the disqualifier here, not the qualification. So the audit is the solution. But a solution nobody is required to use is just a suggestion. And for years, that is all this was. A nice idea for ethical companies. Optional. Which brings us to the part that changed everything. Governments stopped asking. They started requiring. So let us talk about what the state is actually doing. Because this is where it gets real. Here is the shift in one sentence. AI oversight has moved from optional ethics to enforceable law, from should to must, from a blog post to a fine. Now, governments do not do this alone. Before a regulator can demand an audit, somebody has to define what a proper audit even is, what counts, what passes, and that job fell to the standards bodies. The unglamorous, deeply powerful people who write the rule books. Two of those rule books matter most. Learn these two names and you understand the whole landscape. The first is called ISO 42001, and it is a genuine milestone. It is the world's first certifiable management standard built specifically for artificial intelligence. The first one ever. That word, certifiable, is the key. Certifiable means this. An outside auditor comes in, checks your entire AI operation against the standard, and if you pass, you get an actual certificate. Proof. Valid for 3 years. Something you can hold up and say, an independent body checked us and we passed. And here is a detail most people miss, but it matters. The auditors themselves are governed by a separate standard, so the people doing the checking are qualified and consistent. In other words, they audit the auditors. It is checks all the way down. That is what a serious system looks like. The second rule book comes from America, the NIST AI Risk Management Framework. And it plays a completely different game, on purpose. NIST is voluntary. Nobody forces it on you, and it is built around 4 simple verbs: govern, map, measure, manage. That is the whole spine of it. Govern. Build a culture that takes AI risks seriously from the top down. Map. Figure out where your risks actually are, in context. Measure. Put real numbers on those risks and track them. Manage. Act on what you found and keep acting, because the model keeps changing. So how do these two fit together? Simple. ISO gives you the strict, certifiable stamp. NIST gives you the flexible playbook for the day-to-day. One is the exam. The other is how you study. And the smart organizations are not choosing between them. They are doing both. But standards are still just paper until a government gives them teeth. So here is where the law walks in. And the direction of travel is only one way. Toward more rules, not fewer. Look at the map. Europe is building the strictest regime on earth, with hard deadlines and real penalties, and we will spend a whole other video on that alone. America is moving through a patchwork, sector by sector, city by city. And across Asia, framework after framework is landing, each balancing speed against safety in its own way. And governments are not only writing rules, some are building sandboxes. Controlled spaces where a company can run a genuinely risky AI system on real cases under a watchful eye before it is ever let loose on the public. You test the thing where the blast radius is contained. It is the same instinct as a learner's permit. You do not just hand somebody the keys and hope for the best. You supervise the first few miles, precisely because that is when the crash is most likely. But strip away the flags and the fine print, and every one of them is circling the same handful of demands. And once you see the pattern, you can read any AI law on earth. And before the demands, one myth worth killing, that all of this is anti-innovation, red tape strangling the future. It is the exact opposite. Nobody trusts a bank that has no auditors. Nobody boards a plane from a country with no aviation safety board. Rules are not the enemy of a powerful technology, they are the price of its admission. Trust is a thing that lets a dangerous tool actually get used at all. Demand 1. Transparency. If a machine makes a serious decision about a person, somebody has to be able to explain it. The black box as a legal defense is dying. Demand 2. Accountability. When the system gets it wrong, a human is responsible. Not the algorithm, not the vendor's shrug. A named party who has to answer for it. Demand 3. Human oversight. For the decisions that really matter, a person stays in the loop with the power to overrule the machine. The AI advises. It does not get the final word on your life. Demand 4. Risk tiers. This is the clever part, and almost every serious framework does it. Not all AI is treated the same. A spam filter is not a sentencing algorithm, so the rules scale with the stakes. Low risk users stay light. High risk users, the ones that touch your job, your money, your freedom, get the full weight of scrutiny. And demand 5. The audit itself. The independent, systematic check we spent this whole video defining. That is the mechanism that turns the other 4 demands from a wish into something you can actually enforce. And here is why all of this suddenly has weight. Because these are not polite guidelines anymore. Ignore them, and the penalties are real money. Fines large enough that the finance department starts paying attention. That is the moment ethics stopped being a poster on the wall and became a line in the budget. When doing the right thing and avoiding the fine finally point the same direction, things change fast. Now, one honest caveat, because you deserve it. Does any of this make AI perfectly fair? No. And anyone who promises you that is selling something. An audit does not guarantee a good system. It guarantees you will know. It turns a hidden, deniable problem into a visible, measurable on. The record won. That is a lot smaller than perfection. It is also the entire game. Because you cannot fix what you will not let yourself see. So step back and look at what we have built here. A problem. AI making life-altering decisions at massive scale, learning our worst habits from our own history and unable to explain a single one of them. The symptoms. Black boxes, hidden bias wearing the mask of math, silent failures, reputations lost in an afternoon, and trust draining out of every institution that leans on these systems. The solution. The AI audit. Independent, systematic. Judging the machine not by its promises, but by its results, across the data, the model, and the decisions it actually made. And the response. Standards like ISO 42001 and NIST, defining what good looks like, and governments across the world turning that definition into law, backed by deadlines and fines. And why should you, personally, care about any of this? Because you are on the other side of these decisions, every single day, whether you ever noticed it or not. The audit is not a favor to companies, it is the closest thing you have to a right. The right to a decision that can be explained, that can be checked, and that, when it is wrong, can actually be overturned. That is worth knowing exists. So here is the thought I want to leave you with. For most of computing history, we asked one question about a new system. Does it work? Is it fast? Is it accurate? Is it cheap? That question is no longer enough. Because these systems do not just compute anymore, they judge. And the moment a machine starts judging people, does it work, is the wrong question to stop at. The right question is the one this whole field is built on. Is it fair? Can you prove it? And who is allowed to check? That is the audit. That is why it stopped being optional. And it is a word worth understanding before it finishes arriving.